Everyone can see my screen? It's kind of, sort of.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. All right. So again, my name is Dr. Yeboah Quarkume, Department of Data Science Analytics. I direct the program at Howard University, and it's centered in the Center for Applied Data Science Analytics of Howard University. So I'll talk about those two entities we have at Howard. My agenda today is to go over the center and what the center is, the program, our partnerships and opportunities, and then what did data science look at Howard in our space and how we look outward. So the Center for Applied Data Science Analytics is a center which was started with support from MasterCard. That support has allowed us to kind of think differently, I would say, about data science at Howard University. Our four focus areas in the center itself is economic empowerment, minority health and health disparities, social justice broadly, and environmental justice. And these four theme areas have what been guiding our program as we build and continue to build up and down at Howard University. How do we think differently about economic empowerment? How do we think differently about minority health and health disparities? How do we think differently about social justice? How do we think differently about environmental justice? And how does data play a role in that? The center itself is an interdisciplinary space that allows us to not only have trained data scientists, but really we focus on bringing everyone else who's outside of the data ecosystem into the data ecosystem. Right. So what's unique about our center for our faculty is that faculty come from computer science, communications, health, business, education. One of our great instructors who does our data storytelling course comes from English, right? So we really focus on breaking the mold when it comes to the data ecosystem, allowing everyone to bring their passion, their concentration, their content area to the specific field that kind of marries computer science and math. But these are our four theme areas. Our mission in our program is data science for social justice. Some people may say, oh, that's like a data science for social good initiative. We do pivot a little bit more intensely with justice. So we know that number one, there's good and bad. There's good data, bad data. We don't want the bad data conversation. But even with good has a sense of good for whom, right? Good can mean different things, and what's good for someone could not be good for someone else, right? So we're focused on justice, the sense of equity for all. Those of us who are not considered within the ecosystem, how do we see the benefits of data and data empowering and changing our lives, right? So we are focused on social justice, again, one of our theme areas, but how that kind of this looks from a broader standpoint across the US, I say the global ecosystem, particularly in the global South. How do we see that kind of manifesting in our program? Again, we focus on being interdisciplinary in our program. I myself am trained I'm trained in African Studies. I do Africana Studies, but I'm in data science, right? So knowing that as we create this program, the person who's somewhat co-leading it is not from the data science space, right? So we create a program that I myself experienced coming from outside the field into the field. And that kind of played a role in how we continue to create tracks and courses. Innovation, we do believe that people are using data in different ways, and that those different ways should be innovative, right? Is one thing to say, I have a project, I found some analysis and I wrote an article. How can you transform and translate that work to an innovative way that someone can touch it, use it, impact their life, right? And then at Howard University, we are known for influence, right? Let our work have meaning. Let these data that we discover, or gaps we close, or gaps we discover, let it have influence on people's lives, right? So we have students who are coming from dentistry, medicine. How does understanding medical technology or medical data help influence and create change in people's lives? So right now, our program is an online data science program, online graduate program, where anyone from across the world can take the course. It is a flexible part-time or full-time program. Students generally take courses after 5 o'clock EST. So if you're on the continent, it does come a little bit difficult to kind of study at like 11, 12 midnight. It is 30 credits, and I'll go over the classes next. It encompasses the courses, which is about 29 credits and a 1 credit capstone to finish. And there is an internship component. We do have also an interesting impact course that we co-constructed with our partners at U Chicago. But is very flexible in saying that we want those who are not within the space of data science to find ways to get into data ecosystem, right? If we think about all the ways in which data is everywhere, the truth is it's not everywhere. There are those of us who are not counted. There are those of us who are not considered. There are those people who live realities are not being represented in the data. And that's who we're targeting, right? So we definitely put forth an online program that is flexible, that allows anyone to be able to engage in the conversation when it comes to data science. So our courses, one thing in creating this course, this curriculum, we wanted people to feel comfortable with approaching the field, right? If you're coming outside of the field, you may not have the computational language, you may not be the strongest math person. We do require that you have some Python statistics experience to start, because learning computer language, learning data science is a whole different language. All right, so you have an intro to applied data science course. We have our computational social justice course, which is a no-code theory course that allows you to think about what does it mean to look at technology, look at research. With, for most of us, that is a very dirty word in our understanding of technology, and how the American fabric has kind of turned tech and AI against us, right? So what are some challenges we see with that conversation? And then we continue on to go to statistics. In our intro course, you'll be working with Python. In our stats course, you're working with R in that course. Again, focusing on social justice and issues that are surrounded our global community within the global South. Those are the intro courses. And then from there, we have storytelling. Believe being able to tell stories, being able to visualize the data is critical. All right. The days of just crunching numbers, that's still there. We're still in those days. And we want people to be able to tell stories, communicate with the data, because most people within the data ecosystem don't understand what we're doing, right? So being able to translate what your findings are is critical. And that's where we have our Dr. Kenton in the English department teaching students about storytelling and visualization. Then we have another course, social impact, where you're partnered with a corporate or community partner, stakeholder, in wrangling data for an issue that they are dealing with. That is a real world problem. We get down to machine learning, bias, and ethics, upper level course, and then engineering and managing data-driven change. We're looking at, particularly here, SQL and managing databases and complex data sets. Those are required courses. Again, the goal is to target those who are not within the data ecosystem to get them to be more involved. So we have these required courses, and then we move on to what is unique to our program is a chance for you to take some electives. So at Howard University, we do have other online programs that you can take 2 courses in outside of our department. But we also have courses that are elective in our department as well. Right now, we have data science and environmental justice class. We have our most popular class, which is GIS. So in our program, you not only will be able to learn Python, SQL, R, but also GIS as a very much needed tool. Text as data, using R, and then mapping Black people, place, and culture. This is marrying our GIS skills with some of our storytelling skills. So you're able to take 2 electives outside of our department, because we do believe that what's driving people to be able to be passionate about data science is that content area, right? So maybe I'm passionate about community work, right? You may take some courses in the social work department, right? To be able to bring that content area, to bring it back and figure out, how do I deal with data when it comes to social work? How do I deal with data when it comes to education, right? Or political science, right? And then to close the program out, there is a capstone and internship requirement. So we do want you to kind of explore what is out there when it comes to opportunities in data. Some of our students are interested in going to continue into graduate school with PhD. But some people are also interested in going to corporate, right? And then we have a little space where we have students who are not in either, right? The innovation space, so I'll talk about a little bit later. Then capstone is when you kind of bring everything together for us to kind of see ways in which we can do data differently, but really focus on data for social justice. So if you think about our program, from a student standpoint, there's no GRE required. It's an online application. You need a resume, transcript, personal statement essay, and 3 letters of recommendation. Again, the goal is to get anyone, again, we've had students who are dental hygienists, political science major, computer science major. We definitely want the barrier of entry into tech, into data science to not be a barrier for you. So there's no GRE to apply. And we do have applications open every semester, fall, spring, summer. Some partners we've worked with, which I'm going to talk a little bit about as far as the work we've done and how being a part of the program does create a sense for you to kind of experience data in different ways and different partnerships. So we do have a partnership with the SSRC. Data.org is one of our partners. ACLU has hired some of our students to do internships. Brookings Institute in DC as far as topics around community housing. Aim Ahead is a great partner for our students working with health and training students. Harvard Black Box Data Lab, a partner there is helping students think about innovation and data, going from being a student to having a startup and how we support students in growing there. So some of our partnerships. And then we have some other partnerships with Esri. Again, Esri, one of our biggest partners as far as the geospatial space. Every Howard student, faculty member, and staff is able to get Esri products for free. So you can either take a class in our department, or you can just use their platform to be able to self-learn as well. Accenture, MasterCard has been a great partner, Microsoft, and the World Bank. So these institutions have allowed us to kind of look at their data, be able to report back. Students have had internships, fellowships, gotten credentials, gone to conferences, present work related to these organizations. Okay, so this is my last slide. So you haven't seen pictures until now. And I want to kind of close with this just to kind of give you a sense of what we're trying to do. And I say trying because our program is, let's say we're almost 2 years old. We're like an infant, right? And when we were creating this program, what I liked about what was happening in the field and what was happening at Howard was that the field is not like computer science and other fields that have credentials or that have some sense of licensure yet, right? So it gives you the space to think differently about what you hope to see in society, right? So if there's no license to be a data scientist or be in the field, who do I want in my program, right? How do I construct something that allows everyone to feel welcome in a space? Not saying that is a good or bad thing, but if we look at the state of the field, the ecosystem, if only certain people who don't look like me are in the space, and where the space is going, I want to change that space. I have to figure out how to best to create something that's welcoming to people who I want to look, think, talk like me, to be in the space. And then two,
Miss, lunch is ready. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. And then two, we want students to not just come, but also leave the space, right? Feeling confident about what they've learned in a space that doesn't look like them or may not accept them, right? So there's two things that I'm grappling with. How do I let people come in, and how do I let people leave feeling that what they've learned, it can be used and valued, and they'll be valued themselves, right? So the first picture is in the year and 2 months of the program, we piloted with 5 students who came in with some credits from the program, who had some experience in data science, and some who didn't, and they were able to graduate. And I would say of those 5 students, half were not in the STEM computer science space, right? And now they are, right? One is going on to continue a PhD in data science. Another one is working with the government with generative AI, and the 2 others are kind of in corporate, right? So there is a sense of it can work, right? You can take maybe a mixed group of students who aren't in this field, and collectively together. And I say one thing, that our program is an online program, but we do have a cohort feel where students come in together and leave together, right? So we did graduate a group. The second is the innovation part, right? We are pushing students to think about not just going into working or filling or replacing a space that someone who thought about data a certain way, they're not filling that space. We are pushing students to think about what can we create differently about data, right? So we have our student here, Josephine, who's one of our students in Ghana, who's in our program. Very challenging because of time difference, but she has thought about what does doing this mean for my community? What are some gaps in my space that I can fill with the skills that I have, right? The tech is a challenge too sometimes with the Wi-Fi and the power outages in Ghana, but she's doing that, right? And she's the first in her family to do that, right? So we're pushing people to think about innovation, startup, and what can be sparked with having exposure to geospatial data, right? And then lastly, I'll say this, I'm thinking about building down at Howard. So this is an online program focus on graduate students, but how do we create pipelines and build down, like build these tunnels, right? To allow undergrad students, high school students, middle school students, right? So this is a picture of my core features lab where I have my high school students, and we were thinking about data pollution, and data pollution connected to spaces where people aren't covered, right? People don't have access to knowing their air quality, their water quality, their heat data. So we, in the ecosystem of data, we created and 3D printed our own air quality monitor, right? It looks like a house because we wanted people to feel at home with what they're reading with their data, right? And you see behind them is a graduate school, but the graduate school is a space where we're inviting everyone to kind of talk about data differently, right? So that's, again, in innovation, in climate and environment, but again, not just for master's students, right? But for undergrads, middle school, high school, but they're working with our master's students, right? So that's where we see our program going and growing down, and I would say up and out, right? People are leaving our spaces, going into spaces, feeling confident about their data journey, knowing that it is very different compared to other programs you may see online. You may see other course requirements, but I'll say one thing that our students have is confidence. Our students are comfortable with data. Our students may be new to data because of where they're coming from, but they're not afraid to have a different conversation. They're not afraid to put justice on the table, equity on equity as an agenda item, and really filling in gaps, right, where we see they need to be. So at this time, Howard, we're applied, right? We're trying to figure out how do we help people apply what they know, what they can find, what is missing in this data ecosystem, because with all the satellites, drones, IoT, Wi-Fi, there's a lot of data out there. There's so much data out there. But when we think about the issues that are concerning our community, poverty, clean water, clean air, maternal health, that data is not there. So we have so much work to do. And we have to think about who needs to be in the room for us to close those data gaps, right? To clean up that data that is very messy, that is very missing, to be able to solve and look at some of our global issues. So I'll stop there, and I think we can have a conversation about what's forward and next.
Fantastic. That was really insightful. And I love how you all are positioning students to really be drivers for social justice through data. And for anybody with us today, feel free to put questions in the chat, or you can use the Q&A button if you have any questions for our speaker today, Dr. A. Dr. A, let me just start off. If I'm a student wanting to go into the graduate program, what do I need to apply and also be successful?
Yeah, so to apply, you definitely need to have completed your undergrad degree. That's definitely, oh, I'm gonna say you can, I guess now we're applying. Right now we're accepting applications. So you can be a senior and you can apply. Hopefully you can't start until you have your degree. I'll say that. So you can apply. But really, we can be emotional about building confidence, about people join the room, but there's a sense of capacity, right? You do have to have this sense of understanding of Python is more than a snake. It's a computer language. And then statistics. Statistics is the math and the computer science are there. Two things that we do have to grapple with, right? We'll help you, but you should have a sense of knowing what those two elements and where you stand. We do have a free boot camp over the summer that you can take if you don't have those skills that can prepare you to come in the fall, but you should have some understanding of Python and statistics. R would also be great too, because you will have to learn 4 different languages in at least 2 years, right? And language is something that you have to be immersed in, and that's why I think we're trying to build down, because you need time to understand a new language. You need time to sit with it, right? So 2 years may not be enough time for you to pick up 4 different ones, right? So just being comfortable with knowing, and then also computational thinking, right? Thinking about data it's a different way of thinking, right? Thinking about putting things in cells and organizing data and understanding how to database management. That's a thought process that is different. That we will hope that you will come in with that. If not, we'll help you. You may have to apply again if you get rejected, but we'll help you get to the second acceptance.
Wonderful. So it sounds like, you know, if I'm a student or a returning student, there could be some opportunities to upskill in those areas, maybe like through Coursera or edX. You know,
Correct.
or do you have like a favorite of yours that you would recommend?
The Coursera is an option. Coursera does have an Intro to Python for Data Science course. I think the University of Michigan has that. But also, you know, and those are kind of affordable, right? But many of our community colleges also have courses as well that you can take. I think if you have been out of school for a long time, we do have individuals who are above, let's say 40, 50 in our program. You may want to get back to doing homework. You may want to get back into the swing of things. And we welcome our students who are trying to go for promotion, right? You want to add data to your CV, right? But definitely getting into the swing of school, studying. We have a block system. So we have one course a day for about 3 hours. But Coursera definitely is an option, but also your traditional community college also as well.
Oh, that's great. Those are great resources. Someone put in the chat, is there a summer fellowship, a workshop for faculty who work at HBCUs? Do you all do anything like that?
So Howard, I would say we don't. We do have an internal one for Howard. For outside faculty, not yet. The center is working on kind of building up and having more opportunities, but we have it for internal Howard faculty. But I think the AUC has an enormous amount of opportunities for faculty to connect. All right, so I'll throw it to Dr. Washington.
Yep, and your colleague, Dr. Latanya Brown Robertson.
Oh, yes.
She's the Northeastern hub lead for the NSF National Data Science Alliance. And so she has led a number of workshops. She led one at Tableau, and she led one the other day with Dr. Nathan Alexander, who is another colleague, yep, and looking at in the social sciences. So there are workshop opportunities that we actually do in collaboration with Howard University through the NSF National Data Science Alliance. And anybody can hop in, and I'll see if I can put a link to that in the chat. So, yeah.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, great. Someone asked, can you expand on how this program engages the topics of data ethics and social justice?
Yeah, great question. I remember going through my data journey in my first Python class. It was like, X equals this, and then the panda. Let's read it. And I was like, who is this panda? Why we keep using ABCX? Like, can I get some real life examples? And that's what we do, right? We talk about data, we talk about Python, we talk about coding, GIS with real life examples. Like, how can we think about air quality, clean water in this specific DC community using this data? So we'll show you how to code with these examples of real people, real communities. And hopefully by the end of the course, we would solve a problem, right? Because this is real data. But that's kind of what we do. We teach with our faculty are positioned and somewhat forced to use real world examples, right? When it comes to ethics, ethics is a tough conversation to have. And most data scientists and computer scientists don't have it, right? They don't talk about ethics. And we looked at programs and we know that ethics is not one of the course requirements, right? Ethics is throughout our courses, right? And with machine learning and AI courses, ethics is there, right? So we are forced to have students think about, when you look at a data set and you see a lot of missing data, the question should be, why is there so much missing data, right? What is missing? Is it ethically okay to continue to move forward, not knowing that people are missing? How do I choose certain models, right? How do I decide who I should exclude or who should I include? Or do I stop here and say, we need to go back and collect a whole new data set, right? So we have students think about every data point as a person, right? What are the ethical implications of your modeling, right? What are the ethical impacts of your findings? That it takes a little bit more hard work to think about not just a panda in your examples, but to think about Flint, right? To think about Atlanta, right? And crime, right? But we do that because we know that it helps students close the gap in understanding why the work that they're doing and their investment is is important and meaningful, right? But yes, in all our classes, we talk about justice with examples that we use to teach.
That's awesome. Someone asked, are all classes after 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? And what is the average length of the program for a full-time student?
Yes, most of the classes are after 5 p.m. EST online. We do recording, but most of our students join live because the discussions about the data is just so it's it makes learning even more dynamic. So a full-time load is at least 3 classes. So you're taking maybe class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Part-time is less than 3. But most students just do 3 to 2. And that could take you between a year and a half or 2 years if you take 3 at a time. But again, if you do have a graduate degree already, you can come in with at least 2 courses. And then you're adding the data science portion to your content area.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what makes when you look at applications, what would make one say, ooh, this is a strong application, or maybe not yet?
Yeah, so I'm a little biased because I just want to get the person who has passion to be in the room, because passion will get you through maybe failing at Python 2-3 times, right? So you need passion, right, to do things differently, right? It takes a certain temperament, right? But definitely showing in your transcript that you have some courses that show that you're in the direction of moving in this data ecosystem, right? So there's some computer science classes, and there's some Python, R, statistics. That's recent. You know, if you're out of school, have been in school a long time, taking a Coursera class to have a transcript of the course you've taken, going to community college to have that transcript would help, right? So we know that academically, you've been in the space of learning around these technologies. In your personal statement, saying, you know, some people are interestingly, some people are applying and they work in a data space, but don't have proper data training. Right. So knowing that you can say in your personal statement, oh, I work in this division using data, but my goal is to kind of advance my learning, credential what I'm doing. So just tell me what you're thinking about using the application of this new tools to your career goals or life. That'll be helpful. And then for the sense of what happens next. Like, so after you do get it, what do you hope to do? Right. Not saying I'm going to follow you, but we hope that students know that Howard isn't extremely affordable. It is an investment, and you should know what you're investing your time in to say that, okay, after I get this degree, I hope to apply it in this way. And I think some of our students do come because they never had a Howard degree and it's an online opportunity. That's great. We love to see you here. Come to support our HBCUs, but it is a commitment. Right. It is a commitment that you need at least a B to pass a class. There's not a C in a situation. You need a B to pass. So being able to do well is important. And again, in this technical field.
Great, great words of wisdom. Someone asks, how does your very interdisciplinary program equip the skills with the necessary skills in programming? I mean, equip the students rather with the necessary skills in programming.
Yeah. So again, you should come with Python experience. You do leave with Python, R, SQL, and possibly GIS. We're not a program in the computer science department, right? So you should compare courses to other courses, all right? Again, our program is in a graduate school that's very interdisciplinary. Our average student is not a computer science student, and our average student does not go forth to become a software engineer or a computer programmer, right? Our average student is someone who's trying to enter the data ecosystem. So they may leave our program and they may fall into policy, right, in the department. They may go into maybe an analyst, right? So the goal is not to recreate what already exists in some spaces, which are people who are highly technical, but not sensitive to ethical issues that comes to being highly technical, right? So you do leave with learning 4 languages, but we definitely know that is not, at this day and age with LLMs, with so many advanced ways of doing data science, that we don't compare ourselves to that conversation. We're an applied program. So you understand data. How can we apply your tools and skills able to deal with some real life concerns? Yes, and in doing that, some students, again, you can advance your training to go to a computer science program after, to continue your journey in data science. but the skill sets, we meet those 4 skill sets. If you are extremely proficient, you can ask one of the students how they feel about that. I'll say that. But we do differ in that edge. We focus on applied.
But even in that applied, the students are programming, and there is I'll say an expectation of programming skill. We'll say to get that A, you know,
Yes.
I'm thinking strategically here, not to forget A, right? So they do, you know, so it sounds like the students are expected to come in with computer programming knowledge, either through formal training or life training. And
Live training.
then that's being built upon at the program. And it's really neat to think about weaving data science. And obviously to do the data science that you all are doing, you need the programming acumen. And so that is a skill that's just built along the way. And also in data science, there's this aspect of storytelling and communicating. What are your perspectives on around preparing students for this art of storytelling and communication in data science? And what comes to your mind as people talk about storytelling and communication?
Yeah, as a humanist, trained humanist, I think the biggest challenge is not we don't have enough data in some areas and some conversations, but we don't have enough people understanding how to use what is happening or to talk about the data, right? So the storytelling is important. Like you can be exceptionally good at applying every single model under the sun, but if you can't talk about it, right? If you can't speak to a patient about what their medical report is saying and provide some level of comfort, right? Then we failed. We have failed, right, as a society. So we know programming is very important, but if data is everything and data is the new economy, if some of us don't have the language to engage in that economy, then we're seeing what we see now, like large gaps, disadvantage, escalating at exponential rates, right? Some people just don't have access to be able to engage, but they're being surveillanced. Their facial recognition is being snatched. Every AI is being deployed on them, but they don't have the language to understand how to stop it or who to speak to. And the people who do have the language don't know how to communicate to other people to say, you should do this, you should do that. So storytelling is important, but the challenge is that it takes time. Like it's a new language, right? So some of the things as far as us trying to build down is that if you can start in undergrad, if you can start in high school, having that relationship with data, your conversation will develop, it will blossom more, all right? So 1 + 1 is 2, but some people say 1 + 1 is 11, right? That communication, right? How do you tell that story? It matters. You can tell 2 different stories. That's with those same numbers, right? So storytelling is incredibly important, but it's also something that takes time. So we know that our students need time to marinate in understanding how to speak, talk, feel comfortable with numbers, then communicate to others. So I just love what the AUC does as far as the challenges, the competitions, being able to kind of do something on the spot because it builds a certain strength, right? That you can't get out of a class that is 15 weeks, but having other ways to kind of test your skills and be on the spot it's great, right? And we need that as much as we're kind of learning the technical things in the classroom. Like at some point, real life is going to hit, real data will hit your desk, and you have to kind of understand how to communicate with what's happening.
So true, so true. Now, one of your courses is Data 403, Mapping Black People, Spaces, and Culture. So it's looking at mapping, exploring spaces with the study of Black history, culture, and storytelling. Can you tell us more about this course and just unpeel the layers for us about it? It sounds intriguing.
Yeah. So this is kind of thinking about GIS and GIS as, just geospatial information. Dr. Carr talks about Africana Studies being a study of African people, place, and culture. And place is dynamically different depending on who you're talking about, right? I can be in the same space. It could be Howard, it could be DC, it could be the Yard, right? But how people culturally understand the space matters. And having enough data to understand that people think differently is important. So we try to make place the central conversation using GIS, but have people think about place differently, right? I can map the same space 3 different ways, depending on how people understand the space, knowing that the way I explain it, the way I look at it, will create different outcomes, right? Talk about food insecurity, right? Talk about access, right? So understanding that place is culturally, there's some cultural relationship with space. Another example, we look at weather and modeling storms, right? The question becomes, if you're from the South, if it's triggering when Hurricane Katrina hit, right? Why didn't people leave? That's a place question, but also a culture question, right? Where did they go? How did they get there? What information is being communicated? What data was available for them to make the decision to leave that space, right? So this conversation that makes latitude and longitude more complex, that makes, for those of us who are in the global space, returning back home to the continent, how do we reverse the sales? How do we connect what's happening in the continent to happen in the US, right? So it's looking at GIS with a cultural lens, and having students think through sustainability, climate, in a more complex way. So yeah, I'll say that.
That's fantastic. So have you all been able to have collaborations with other centers across the universities, like in talking about weather or the atmosphere, like the Center for Atmospheric Sciences, or thinking about health, maybe the Center for Sickle Cell Disease? So how has collaboration across universities kind of, we'll say, benefited the program? And are you, because it sounds like you're really bringing some much needed data solutions to some of these really hard problems.
Yeah, so again, being 2 years old, you're infant, you try to, manage your bandwidth. So we definitely worked with the hospital and the Howard Excellence Center with having our students either transcribe data, organize their data, even knowing that in some places when it comes to healthcare, so on and so forth, that people are still very much hard copy, right? Getting surveys to be more digital, right? Creating a database for departments at Howard, creating dashboards for departments at Howard. We've been very resourceful in partnering. Our most recent partnership was with the Sustainability Office. We created GIS maps to locate where all the solar panels are on campus, right? We're now working on a project where we're trying to create a GIS map to show the accessibility access points for all the buildings on campus. Right. So, students are able to get high level experience as far as AI modeling, thinking through different projects, but on a lower scale, just understanding digitally where we stand in our digital economy, increasing our digital capacity, right? Our data capacity, I would say. We're trying to reach out to more departments and do that. Then with that, we find solutions. When we're able to map out how accessible our campus is, we can figure out what's the best way to create improvements, what areas of the campus do we focus on to deploy, right? Because we can say this part of the campus is not accessible, so maybe we should focus on that part, but now we have the data to make the decision, right? So just creating ways in which the university as a whole can understand its data ecosystem. We've been very much working in partnership with parts of the university. But again, we're still young, still small, and you'll be surprised because all of our students are online. So I literally have the student who's working on the solar panel project. She's in Trinidad and Tobago. All right, she's in TNT. She's mapping our solar panels on Howard's campus. We have a student who's like cross-validating her data in person as undergrad, but it works, right? We're able to do so much, even though we're not in the same physical space, right? Very, very, very interesting ways for us to collaborate with the campus, across campus.
Wonderful. That's great. So what advice would you give to other institutions looking to, we'll say, replicate Howard's success in merging data science with social justice?
So I would use success lightly. I would say when I turn 5, then we can start talking about success. So I'm still growing, right? But I think one thing that what we pivoted to do is like, if we had a chance to do something differently, could we? All right. So our program faces a gap in the field with applied and looking at social justice, right? But that's a risk, right? Because not everyone wants to do that. Not everyone's hiring for that type of angle, right? So we do have, we're facing a social impact field, right? That we're hopeful will kind of take our students in, from a workforce standpoint. So I say if that's the goal, right? I think that it can be done, and we're doing that. The data is still being with 5 graduates. We're still learning how to do that well, right? But I think even if you want to go the traditional route, right? The traditional route of high technical programming, I think that's still valid because we also still need some people there in that space too, able to fill those spaces. So I would say the temperament of the direction, again, we're applied, you may not be applied, you may be traditional. They're all still needed. So deciding that first. And then defining success. I think defining success is important. Our success metrics is having students who are not from a STEM background come into our program and leave our program, right? But if your vision of success is different, you have to define that for yourself. And with learning outcome, learning goals, where you hope to target students. Is it more regional conversations for your student body? We're looking for international student body, right? So what that means that your projects need to be international. So interesting, our student from Ghana, one of the classes we were talking about crime and racial profiling. And she said for 3 weeks, she was like, I get it, but I don't get it, right? Because she's not in this context, right? So when it comes to other issues, she can relate: water, health, wage gap, right? Domestic violence data, right? But we can assume that even our real world problems are use cases for everyone. So if your goal is to have a global program, you must be sensitive to have a global mindset in how you bring forth your program and examples. So yeah, I would say that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's awesome. Good words of wisdom and nuggets of advice. So what are the next big steps for data science at Howard, particularly in addressing environmental justice and technological disparities?
Yeah, so Dr. Kenton Ramsey, we're working on kind of creating a data ranger type ecosystem where community-based learning around data, can we tool up students, but also tool up communities at the same time, be able to kind of engage in this data economy. We're trying to, again, build down, right? So we're working on the minor, hopefully a major, getting to the middle school, creating a pathway to where we are in the graduate school. We hope to kind of build up the innovation, right? Can we go from you being a student to a startup, right? Knowing that the data ecosystem for some people, it's had an economic answer, right? So can we build businesses and startups that can be the spaces where our students can work, right? Can you leave our program, build something, and hire somebody from our program? And we create a different ecosystem of data economy, not just in the US, but globally. So we're trying to build innovation. We hope to possibly maybe be an in-person program. Online has its benefits, but some of this engagement in person helps, and some people learn best in person. All right. And then continue to grow faculty, grow in partnerships with organizations. We're hopeful to kind of build up a data clinic where people can bring their data questions or problems, and we can have students who are funded to be able to kind of deal with those problems, to learn, kind of like a legal clinic, learn as they grow, and communities kind of get benefits. Yeah, and then partner with more HBCUs, and kind of moving the work forward, and filling some of the gaps. So say that.
That sounds great. I mean, just all the different ways in which you're thinking about the different facets of data science and how in pushing that envelope. And those data clinics I hear are super fun. My math twin, Dr. Talithia Williams, kind of Talithia. We call each other math twin. She's at Harvey Mudd College, also a Spelman graduate. She runs the data clinic at Harvey Mudd, and it really is a nice way to bring industry in and work one-on-one with the students, and the students work on industry problems. So this sounds like, things are going in some really exciting and new directions. So that is great. And you also have a collaboration with MasterCard, as do we. And they've been just really great partners in this work. And so what lessons from your partnership with MasterCard could be applied let's say more broadly, and what were some lessons learned in partnering with MasterCard, and what were the great highlights?
Yeah, MasterCard is one of the interesting partners that, in the spaces that we present, we work, we see them. Sometimes you see a partner and then you just see things being dealt with, but you don't see that partner, right? So I think MasterCard, Shanna and her team are very much invested in helping us understand some of their goals, but also having us be unique in how we bring forth our goals together, right? So I think MasterCard has been a great partner there in saying that I want to have different titles for my courses. Like, I don't want to have a traditional title. Like, I want to have something different. I want to have social justice in every title. That's okay, right? I think the goals are being met. That's okay. All right. Now, again, the data is still out on whether that works or not. But I think knowing that they're here with us, helping us envision a new direction in data, very encouraging as well. I think the sensitivity to understanding that if we look at where things are going and we want things to change, we have to think differently, right? And some of that is communication. So data is definitely a high priority, but communication and storytelling is much more and more important, right? That the communities who need this information need to be communicated with and to, in kind of bringing forth change in the field. And then knowing that, they're highly invested in social impact, right? And Howard being social justice, social impact, it's helpful. It's helpful that ethics is in the conversation, right? We're invested in making sure that we're ethically making impact, not just in DC, not just across the HBC ecosystem, not across the US, but globally, right? And the MasterCard data helps us do that, right? It's having that data set helps us kind of wrangle and think through and give students examples of how to be able to execute the vision that MasterCard has. So it's a great, great partner.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing about your program today. I really enjoyed learning about how you all are really making this global ethical impact that's really bringing some much needed solutions to some hard problems. And so just kudos to you and your colleagues for bringing this, and also MasterCard. You all are friends in MasterCard as well as the NSF. So we're just friends all around. So thanks again, Dr. A, for coming here. I much
Thank you.
enjoyed diving
Yes,
into
we
the
have
program
you.
and learning more. And thank you for taking the time. I know it's a busy time and you're at a conference now. So thanks for taking the time to share insights with us today. And I hope everybody enjoyed today's seminar, and I hope everybody has a wonderful holidays coming up in the next few months and celebrate some new beginnings. So thanks again. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.